Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for everybody who has put in some hopeful moments into our chat, hopeful eSchool moments. I love seeing these answers come through. I especially love the learning to cook lunch. I would love to know what Sam is learning to cook, if you want to drop that in the chat. My name is Natalie Jung. I am the Prep Academy Dean. As someone asked a great question earlier, one that we get a lot is, what does Prep Academy mean? And Prep Academy refers to our 9th and 10th grades at DSST, and then 11th and 12th grades are called Senior Academy. I don't know who is running the slides right now, if that's Miss Albercat or Mr. Menduke, but if you want to go ahead and move to the next one. If anybody would like Spanish interpretation, you can go ahead and call into our Spanish conference line, and then you'll need that meeting ID. You'll just type that in on your phone. If anyone has questions, we have a few different ways that you can ask, so you can put them into the chat. You can try the raise your hand function, or you can put them in your exit ticket at the end. We will respond to the exit ticket questions and feedback next week. And then the last way is to use our parking lot, and I dropped the link to that document in the chat a little while ago. If someone else wouldn't mind just reposting that so that it's easily accessible for anyone who hadn't joined at that point, that would be great. Next slide. Welcome. Go ahead, keep going. Maybe there's a delay. There we go. All right, so we always like to start off our meetings, our calls, with a little bit of joy and community building. So we'd love to see parents practice using the raise your hand function to share out verbally one way that your student has made you proud in the past month. And this does not have to be something that is school related. It can be any way that your kid or your student has made you proud. We would love to hear your voices. So the raise your hand feature is at the top of your screen. Once you click that, I will be able to see, oh, we've already got some. I love it. Thank you. And if you are on mute, you can come off mute to share. Sorry, my list is just loading to tell me who has their hands up. All right, let's start with the family of Patrick Witten. And please correct me if I'm not pronouncing any of your names right.
Yeah, this is Patrick's mom, Michelle, and I'm very proud that Patrick has not complained once about online learning or, not being in person, although I know he would prefer it.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing. Family of Peter Roche, please tell me how to pronounce your name correctly.
Yeah, it's Rish. Hi.
Rish, okay.
Yeah,
Thank
this
you.
is Hazel, which is another pronunciation nightmare. But we're super proud of Peter and his friends for digging into AP Chem in a pretty challenging situation, and they are bound and determined to get this content. So it's fun to see.
Oh, that is great. AP Chem is very daunting, and that's awesome that they are just so excited and digging in. Also, I just want to say that I love the amount of hands that are up right now. If only students were as enthusiastic with their hand raising. All right, family of Maxwell McMahon.
Hi, I'm Kim McMahon, and Max does prefer to be called Max. And well done on pronouncing McMahon, because a lot of people say McMahon. I wanted to share that we've been really proud of Max specifically this year, because he's really been an advocate for himself independently, and he has reached out to his teachers and advisors with missing assignments or having to retake formatives, and so we've been very proud of his advocacy for himself and his learning.
That is wonderful. Self-advocacy is always important, but it is especially important in online school, and that is something that we will actually talk about a little bit later. Thank you for sharing. Let's go Sasha Spangler. Hopefully I said that one right.
Yes, you did. Hi, I'm Lon, Sasha's mom, and I just wanted to share that I'm really proud of Sasha for sharing of what she is learning through online. And, even though I'm here and like peeking around, it's still the same thing at the dinner table. It's like sharing what's going on at school. So I'm glad that hasn't changed, even though all of the way they do academics has.
Oh, that's wonderful. Love the dinner time sharing and family. Let's go, Jack Nakashima.
I kind of just second what Max's mom said about self-advocacy. Jack felt that maybe fitness wasn't a great opportunity to do remote, even though he's doing his own fitness. So he advocated and got himself moved into something that might challenge him, would be AP Music Theory. And so I was real proud of him for, I told him it was all up to him and he did it. And I was real proud of him for that.
That's great. Both really awesome classes, and it's important to find, what's the right fit for each student. Kyle Thompson.
Hi, this is Jeffrey Kylestad, and I actually have a non-school celebration. Hopefully that's okay.
Great, of course.
So Kyle's rock band continued over the summer, and they had the good fortune to do an outdoor concert at the end of the summer, and Kyle not only had his first big guitar solo, but he had to sing primary on a couple of cool 90s grunge songs, and he rocked out, to say the least. So I was really glad that he didn't let nerves get the best of him and let his stage presence come through, and by the end he had everybody on their feet.
That is really amazing. My hands started sweating just thinking about performing in front of people. Can you share one of the 90s grunge songs that they performed?
Yeah, his two songs were an Alice in Chains song. Can't remember the name. And then the other one, which was one of my personal favorites, was a band called the Pixies. And the song was called Bone Machine, which is really, really hard to sing if you listen to it. So they picked some good ones, but some hard ones.
Yeah. Well,
Awesome. I'll have to listen to those later. Thanks for sharing.
Yep.
I've got a couple more here. Liam Shannon.
I am really proud of Liam for getting me up earlier so that we can get outside and work out together instead of me doing it a little bit later. That way we can both do it and he still makes it to school.
Oh, that is awesome. That is so fun and great that you're able to have that time together. Jeremiah Emery.
Hi, I'm Tina, Jeremiah's mom. We've just been proud of him just for his attitude. I think he gets himself up every morning, makes breakfast, makes sure he's on at the right time every morning, and I really don't have to do anything. And even though being in front of a computer all day is certainly not his favorite and he'd much rather be in person, he's just had a really good attitude about it.
That's great. Yeah, the positivity is so helpful. It goes a long way in, creating community, spreading joy. Lucas Garcia.
This is Jim, Lucas's dad. I wanted to share, we're really proud of Lucas finding that right balance with his academics and his cross-country training. Sometimes he'll even let me ride my bike as he's running during training. So, and he can almost keep up with me. So.
Very fun. Thank you for sharing. Zulema Arredondo. I think I butchered that one. I'm sorry. Please tell me how to say your name correctly.
Hi, this is Leticia Arredondo, and it's for Zulema Arredondo. And I just want to say I'm very proud of her for how focused and prepared she is, regardless of the situation we're currently in right now. She also has a 10-year-old brother who can't always be very quiet during his e-learning, so she's managed to handle that very well.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that is hard when you have other kids, other family members in the home. And again, something that we're going to talk about, how students can manage that and communicate those things with their teachers. We've got two more. We've got Jennifer Alvarenga.
Yeah, that's how you say it.
Hello, I'm Jennifer's dad. I'm so proud of her because even if she's doing online school, I can tell how she focuses and how she's keeping her grades up.
Wonderful. Thank you. And last one, Leah Sterling.
Hi, this is her mother, Lisa Sterling. And I just wanted to say that I'm very proud of Leah, just for her focus, even though, it's online environment, and she's advocating for herself and keeping her grades up and not complaining and just being on time. So she's just making me very proud.
Oh, that's so wonderful. Thank you. And we have one more. We got another hand up. Elijah Sedbrook.
Hi, this is Jamie, Elijah's mom. Sorry I was late to the meeting, but I just wanted to commend Elijah for just doing the balancing act that he's doing and really applying himself and taking pride in his work. He's in between 2 different houses right now, so I know it's not easy to keep, a schedule and stay focused when you have that and little brothers and sisters running around everywhere. So he's really doing a good job of holding himself accountable and being really responsible on his own. So I'm really proud of him for that.
That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you to all of our families who shared. Truly, I am feeling like very inspired by our students right now, and also feeling like I kind of need to up my game a little bit. And like some of these students, I think, are being more doing better adulting than I am sometimes. So thank you so much. We're going to go ahead and move on. Please feel free to drop more celebrations for your students in the chat. You can keep doing that all throughout the meeting. We love to see them. All right, we want to make a quick reminder for our website. This is our school website. It does have all of the information for back to school night. So that includes all of the videos that the teachers filmed that talk about their classes. You can find all of those on the website at byers.com/back-to-school-week 2020-2021. And we will keep reminding you of that URL throughout the meeting. And if someone on the team wouldn't mind just dropping that in the chat so that people have it, that would be great. Thank you, Mr. Franz, and I will turn it over to Mr. Menduk.
Hey, good evening, everyone. My name is Stephen Menduk. I am our Associate School Director of Instruction. I'm really excited to be here tonight just to be able to talk a little bit about where we're at currently, and then kind of hopefully lay a groundwork for some information for us moving forward this year and what we hope to accomplish. I definitely want to start with our Byers vision here, and I'm going to ask Cameron Shane, our world history teacher, to go ahead and read this for us.
All right. CSSC Byers is a welcoming community where all people are known and valued. Students have the opportunity to explore their identities academically, personally, and socially. Together, we work to cultivate relationships and support each other to be our best. Our graduates have the opportunity to pursue their aspirations and positively impact the world.
Thanks, Mr. Shane. I think one thing I want to say about our vision here is that it's really easy to have a vision when things are going well and when the circumstances are kind of what you would expect them to be. And you could argue that right now, though, our Byers vision is most important. Things are really uncertain, as we all know. We're being faced with tons of challenges, and we're really committed to leaning into this vision in the coming days and weeks and months to try to help us find some sense of routine. What that looks like for this year, largely living that vision, means that we are committed to being an anti-racist community. There is some text here on the slide that you can read on your own. But what I would love to say about this is, we know that current events are having a large effect on our students on a daily basis. And it's our responsibility as a Byers community to make sure that we're talking with students about racism, about inequality, and about difference frequently throughout our school year. One thing I could definitely guarantee from this slide is that we are going to make mistakes as a community, whether it's a teacher, a leader, a student, a family member. We are going to make mistakes in this space. But the most important piece of this is that we are giving each other some grace here, and that we're getting feedback from all stakeholders to make sure that we have an inclusive community. Because without feedback from you all, our families, our students, our teachers, and our leaders, we will not have an inclusive community. There are some ways that you can help get involved with our Byers community. So first up is taking our community input survey, and on the next slide, you'll be able to see exactly where you could find that. We also have our Growing Together at Byers, formerly known as Flight of the Falcons. And this is the primary avenue for fundraising for clubs and extracurricular activities. And we know that our students really need those a lot right now, especially in a place where we are looking at a screen for the majority of our days. We also have our science and tech parent groups. Everyone is welcome to those groups. And what's really exciting is our STP has done some work to start creating regional community groups, in large part because Byers has students from all over the city of Denver. And we really want to make sure that communities throughout our city have an opportunity to connect with one another. STP is also working on our Leading Your Learner support groups that will help families figure out how to best support their student to succeed in a remote space. And number 6 there, +1, we know that right now, a lot of us are in flux, whether it's with employment or health or whatever the case may be. So money is not the only way to support us through that Growing Together at Byers. If you can donate your time, if you can't do that, if you could donate your feedback, those are all avenues to help us make sure that our community is improving on a daily basis. Next slide, please. On the next slide, you'll be able to see this is the location to take your survey, the community input survey, at that same link that Ms. Jung spoke about earlier. And my last slide here, the big question that I'm sure we're all waiting to hear an update on. Again, there's some text here on the slide that I'm not going to read to you. I'll let you kind of take a look at that on your own. But the latest updates are and really will continue to be from the emails that we are all receiving from our network and specifically our CEO, Bill Kurtz. So continue to read those emails to stay up to date. If you have one-off questions or you want to connect with someone, our school director, Ellen Curry, is going to be the best person to do that. What I could say for sure, if we do return to in-person learning, the key here is that we will have options for families. So we don't know what the details are, but we do know that we'll have a remote option and we'll have an in-person option if we do return in person. So no student will be forced to be on our campus. The last plug here is just please continue to fill out the surveys that are sent to you to really help us make the most informed decision possible, because we want to make sure we're meeting the needs of really our most valued stakeholders, and that are you, our families, and our students. And that is it for me. Thanks, y'all.
Thanks, Stephen. We're going to move on to some common classroom expectations. These can be found on the website. So there are a list of 10 common classroom expectations, or CCEs, that we put together before the school year, and these are specific to online school. You can find the full list on the website. I'm only going to go over 3 of the most important this evening, but definitely if you have questions about any of the others, you can drop those questions in the parking lot, in the chat, or in your exit ticket. Go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So if you go to our website, you will be able to download the full PDF, and this is what it will look like. Next slide. All right, so let's start with, I would say, the most contentious, typically the use of camera. So we would love for all students to have their cameras on all the time. We recognize that that is probably not a realistic thing, right? Students are very reluctant most of the time to have their cameras on. However, we do have the expectation that cameras are on for attendance at the start of class and then at the teacher's request. So if a teacher is going into small group work, a small discussion, or wants to do a CFU or a check for understanding, and they really want to be able to see their students, we ask that students do turn those on when the teachers ask. And then of course they can turn them off if they need to. We really value community and connection, especially in an online remote world. And it really is just much easier and more fun to connect when we can see each other's faces. So in the bottom right corner, you can see what teachers or anyone will see if someone does not have their camera on. It's just the students or whoever's initials. Sometimes there will be like an old school photo, but sometimes it's just a little circle with their initials. So we love to see faces. We really encourage students to have their cameras on whenever possible. And we try to practice that as well as staff. Next slide, please. All right, so use of Teams is also really important. You all have gotten a little taste of that tonight. So there are 3 things that we really think about when we talk about the use of Teams. One is going on mute. You can see a little picture in the bottom left when the, you know what the mute icon looks like. So we ask that students typically stay on mute when they are not speaking. We just get a lot of background noise and cross wires, and it can be distracting. So we ask that students stay on mute unless teachers have specifically requested that they come off to share or join in a discussion. There are definitely times when it is appropriate for students to put something in a class chat for the entire group to see. We love when students participate in that way in discussions or to ask questions, get clarification. However, there are times when it is more appropriate for students to send staff a private message, and we just encourage them to really communicate their needs that way, especially when it comes to attendance, which we will talk about a little bit later. And last, you all did a great job of, oops, sorry, one more. Many of you did a great job of using the raise your hand function. So that is a really good way for us to gauge if someone wants to come off mute and speak, if they may not have their cameras on at the time. So that's just a good way for teachers to recognize people who would like to share out. All right, now I'm ready. All right, so really important and something that we are stressing in a lot of different ways is that students, we really just encourage them to communicate their personal needs, whatever that may be. These were just a handful of the ones that came to mind the most quickly. Student needs to go to the bathroom, their computer died, they need a stretch break. I put Diva Dog. I have a 9-year-old Greyhound who, like, there's just no other way to describe her other than Diva, and I'm constantly popping out of meetings and such to like let her out, whatever. We know that things are going on at home, right? We are in the middle of a pandemic. Life is a lot right now. We know that there are things happening that are beyond students' control, right? Someone said like younger siblings at home who maybe are not great at being quiet. People lose Wi-Fi. Maybe your hamster gets out and runs away. Maybe you spill something on your computer. Maybe you just need a minute to reset yourself. All of those things are completely fine. But if students do not communicate those things to their teachers, then we don't know if they are doing something intentionally away from the computer or if they are just not participating in class because they're playing a video game, watching something on YouTube, whatever it may be. So we really, really stress the importance of students communicating with their teachers so that we know when and why they may be missing parts of class. All right, next slide. Oh, and one other thing I just wanted to again stress about communicating personal needs. Those are not communications that need to be sent in the class chat. So that is a time when it is absolutely appropriate for students to send a private message to their teacher or advisor to say like, hey, I just need to step away for a few minutes. Okay, and then yeah, a note about attendance. So along the lines of communicating, every teacher in this online school that we have takes attendance a little bit differently. So a few examples, some teachers will do a traditional roll call at the beginning of the class, and they will ask students to come off mute and say here, or if they cannot come off mute for whatever reason, to at least put something in the chat. And then often teachers will do some other kind of attendance check midway through class to make sure that students are still there and actively engaged. I hate to admit this, but I will. I had a job in my early 20s when I worked remotely and I would log into meetings and then I would go walk my Diva Dog. Not proud of it, but it's the truth. And we recognize that students are susceptible to the same allure. So there are a lot of different ways that teachers will take attendance. If your student is being marked absent, but they were at home on their computer, that probably means that they did not respond to their teacher whenever attendance was taken. So please, if you get an attendance call or email or notification, really check in with your student to make sure that they were actively engaged in their class. And if students come in late, they are responsible for notifying their teacher that they have arrived, again, either by coming off mute or by putting something in the chat. Because again, we know that things happen, people are running late, that is totally fine. But but teachers do not receive an alert when someone joins the call. So they definitely need to say like, hey, Miss Albercat, I'm sorry I was late. My dog threw up, but I'm here now and I'm ready to learn. And if you need to excuse your student's absence, you can email Byers High School attendance at scienceandtech.org, or you can call the main line and you can leave a message. And I think now we are turning it over to Mr. Brzezinski.
Hi, everyone. My name is Chris Brzezinski, and I teach 10th grade world literature and am also the 10th grade house lead. And just wanted to take a couple of minutes here to give you some information about the tech platforms that we use on a given day. Students are getting really great at this, and a lot of these are very similar to a traditional school day for us, but just wanted to provide this extra context for you for information, and so that you can keep up to date with a lot of the important things that are going on. So if we could go to the next slide, I will go over these platforms. Our main goal this year definitely was to create consistency and just like clarity, I think, over some of these tech platforms. There can be a lot of them, and we really wanted to make sure that we were on the same page with a lot of them. Obviously, we're on Microsoft Teams right now, and that's our main platform for classes, for communication during those classes, for video calls and check-ins, quick response type things. Google Classroom is our main tech platform for assignments, materials, and other important information for classes and advisories. And likewise, that works really well because documents can be stored and accessed in Google Drive, and it really is a pretty seamless process. Outlook and email is also really important. Want to encourage that students are using Outlook to communicate with their teachers, especially outside of the class times when they need to potentially miss a class or catch up with a missing assignment. That's a really important tool as well that we're working with. If we could go to the next slide, that would be great. This one, just quick, Teams again, status is important. I think it's really important during the school day that we make sure that we're available and ready for calls. So that's why this is included here. And it's important as we try to connect with students. I think we're not ready for the next one though. Next slide. Just quickly, Classroom. This is what kind of an assignment will look like in Classroom. There is a sort of ribbon that goes across and you click on it, and there's likely going to be a couple of different links in that Classroom assignment. So there could be a document, there could be a Google form, another presentation. Some teachers put class recordings on their Google Classroom. So it's a really dynamic platform that offers a lot of ability to sort of, embed and create things within. I think I'm ready for the next slide here. I added a couple of these because I think they are important. If you go to the Google Classroom page, you can find a couple key things. One is a calendar. So if you look at the calendar, you can see all of the assignments that a student has assigned to them and kind of access that a little bit more clearly. And then there's also this button that's to review. And if you click on the to review button, it'll give you assignments that are coming up, missing assignments, and it's a really cool function to get that additional information. I think I'm ready for the next slide for you. And I think this is just finally about Outlook. Really encourage accessing Google Classroom is something that if you're on your Google page, on your Google, and you're signed into your account, you can go into the upper right-hand corner and click on the, I believe, 9 dots. And one of the scroll down options is Google Classroom. Bookmarking that could be a really good one as well. Finally, just wanted to put Outlook out there as a thing that we are really recommending as a pro tip, as a tool to use for students, and that would be important for completing missing work. requesting support, and just outside of classroom communication. I think that's pretty much it for me. I'm going to send it over now to Miss Albercat for some academics.
Thanks, Chris. My name is Miss Albercat. I am the 9th grade house lead and a humanities teacher and a Brinks advisor. I'm going to talk about academics as they pertain to Prep Academy, so 9th and 10th grades. We're going to cover different categories in the grade book, the weights of each trimester, and then how students can recover credit for late work. All of these gradebook categories are the same for 9th grade and 10th grade. Every teacher's gradebook has these 4 categories. Practice and participation is also known as P&P, and those assignments are just graded for completion. Students should expect to have about 2 to 3 assignments put in that category each week, and that can be any classwork, any homework, and that accounts for 40% of their grade in each class. Formative assessments and summative assessments are graded for proficiency, so that's where we're really looking at skill, more so than work habits like completion and timeliness. A formative, smaller formal assessment like a quiz, a mastery check that a teacher chooses to grade for content or skill as opposed to completion. A class might have about one of those a week, and that accounts for 20% of the student's grade. Summative assessments are larger formal graded assessments like tests, midterms, essays, projects. A class should have about 2 to 3 of those per trimester, and that category makes up a quarter of the student's grade in that class. And then every class has a final exam at the end of each trimester, and those are network-wide, also graded for proficiency. And that just counts for 15% of a student's grade. Each trimester for 9th graders is weighted differently. We kind of start soft and end strong because we know that freshman year is a big transition year for students, and we want to extend them grace as they're getting used to high school. So trimester 1 is only 20% of a year-long grade in a class that is all year long. Trimester 2 goes up to 35%, and then by trimester 3, we are confident that students have our systems and routines internalized and can really make a huge impact on their grade, with 45% of the year being based on that trimester. And then for sophomores, we feel like you've got a much better hang of it, so each trimester is weighted equally at 33%. Assignment recovery is not new this year, but it's new language for what was formerly college prep, or CP. So what it is an intervention. In the past, it has felt punitive to students because it has been a time constraint. It was an actual intervention that you had to attend either after school or at lunch. But we want to go back to the idea that it is an action taken to improve a situation. It is teachers intervening to help a student recover credit for an assignment. It is also an opportunity for students to feel seen and heard and known, because it provides them an opportunity to kind of explain to teachers what is getting in the way of them completing their classwork. So in that respect, it is an opportunity for students to develop their relationships with their teachers and to problem solve some barriers that might be in the way of work completion, even if that barrier is just motivation or just, I honestly forgot. Lastly, it is the process for recovering credit for incomplete work or missing work. And so now I will outline the steps of that process. The first step is that when a teacher checks for an assignment, if your student's assignment is incomplete or missing, the teacher is going to assign a college prep in Compass, which is one of our systems. And that just means it's going to trigger an email to the student and the advisor notifying them that they have something that's incomplete or missing. And it will also trigger a phone call to parents or guardians, again, just to keep you in the loop. From there, the teacher is going to reach out to the student, and it may be through email, it may be through a Teams chat, it may be through a Teams call. And all they want to do is initiate a reflection about why the work was not completed or not completed on time, so that they can help the student form a plan to make it up. Within a week of all that happening, the student can complete the assignment and turn it in. But then this last step is super important. The student needs to notify the teacher that that has all happened. we have a lot of students and a lot of platforms, and it just isn't feasible for us to constantly be checking for makeup work. So we're happy to give full credit for students who complete this process, but we need to know that they completed it. And the best way to ensure we know is by sending an email, unless the teacher has a different system that they have made students aware of. But just formally letting the teacher know, hey, I've done this, please get it graded as soon as you can. And then they can recover absolutely full credit for that. This process has been outlined to students. It was outlined to students in our morning meeting on Tuesday, and it begins Monday. So far, we've just been practicing this skill together. Teachers may have been reaching out to students sort of informally and taking late work without a reflection process, but starting Monday, the college prep notifications will go out and we'll be asking students to reflect with us more formally. I think we are moving now into Q&A. Mr. Menduk or Ms. Jung, how do we want to facilitate that exactly?
That is a great question. I think we have some questions that have been put into the parking lot already. Truthfully, I don't know who is answering those questions. It is not me. So whoever has been answering the questions in the parking lot, if there are any specific questions that you want to elevate in with the whole group, please do. If you still have additional questions that you want to ask now, please go ahead and raise your hand or drop them in the chat. It looked like we had one hand up for Ethan Redden. Was that correct? If you have a question, go ahead.
Yeah, this is Ethan's mom. Just around the attendance question. So we've had a couple of instances where he was present, he checked in on time, his camera was on, and then I get a notification that my student was not in class that day. I guess I'm curious, maybe that's just an oversight or an error, but is that serious? Do I need to follow up and try to figure out how to get that corrected, or what is that about?
Yeah, so that's a great question. I cannot speak obviously for whichever teacher or class that happened in. It is possible that if that specific teacher was using some kind of assignment such as Pear Deck to spot check for attendance. So, if a student responds to roll call at the beginning of class, but then maybe doesn't complete a portion of the assignment and the teacher is using that to see like who is there at that time, that could be just an example of a reason that a student will be marked absent. I would recommend just having your student talk to that teacher directly and say like, hey, I was here, figure out why there was maybe a miscommunication. It could have been something that was mismarked. I would say that's always just the first step, is to have the student talk to their teacher or advisor directly.
Okay, I guess the follow-up to that is, if for whatever reason it doesn't get resolved, for whatever reason he stays marked as unexcused absence, is that affecting anything, like he's not allowed to make up work that day, or is that going to have a negative effect down the road?
I believe that varies by teacher. I don't know, Ms. Albercat, if you would want to speak to that, or Mr. Brzezinski.
I can chime in with what I know, but I do think that it varies by teacher. In our attendance policy, it is stated that students cannot complete work from an absence unless it is excused. That being said, I know it's difficult as a teacher to keep tabs on that. So I often just let absent students, I encourage absent students to make up work regardless. I do think it's important that the data is accurate though, and so I would encourage follow-up emails to the teacher, the advisor, and our attendance office, because even if it's not impacting the student, we just don't want that data to live there inaccurately.
Thanks, Ms. Albercat. Mr. Menduk, I'll let you go ahead and elevate some of the questions from the parking lot.
Yeah, definitely. I also just want to echo Ms. Albercat's piece that she just shared. I think this is a great opportunity for students to learn to, advocate for themselves. So if you're marked absent and you've been in class, just let your teacher know. I think we're all in a space of giving one another a ton of grace, both from teacher to student. And I would hope from student to teacher as well that, we've never done this before on both sides, and we're going to figure it out together. So there's a ton of room for grace, and we're going to normalize making mistakes because they are definitely going to happen. There's a couple of questions in the parking lot that I would really love to bring up. There's one about just like families having access to upcoming assignments and things like that. Mr. Brodzinski showed a calendar, and I just want to stamp that that calendar was a Google Classroom calendar, not a Microsoft Teams calendar. There was a little bit of confusion there. And in that Google Calendar, there was a section that Mr. Brodzinski specified the to review feature so you could see upcoming assessments. Another, again, really easy way to figure out exactly what's upcoming. If you can't find that feature, if you're struggling to find it, is just to have your students send an email saying, hey, want to plan ahead? Do we have any upcoming formatives or summatives? There is another question about just screen time, which we know is a huge ask of our students and our teachers as well. Staring at a screen for hours on end is really not healthy for anyone. And at this point, where we're at is, yes, Pablo or the parent or guardian of Pablo, we are right at about 6 hours a day, which I think none of us feel fantastic about. And we know that an asynchronous model like we used in the spring was not best for kids, and that we actually saw some increased gaps as a result of that model. So this synchronous model is really for the benefit of making sure that our kids are keeping up with where they need to be in terms of their academics. And I think our teachers, to give them some credit, are doing a really good job of building in intentional breaks during classes, but also, to Mr. Greif's point, building in some intentional time for independent work where they could step away from the screen and kind of, do some work maybe with pen and paper, maybe with a partner through another call. So those were two big questions that I wanted to make sure I raised up.
Thank you, Mr. Menduk. Looks like we have a couple of hands raised. I'm pulling up my list here. Sorry, my computer is a little slow. Christy's parents.
Yes, yes, this is Barbara Daner. So the intervention for missing assignments, what amount of time are we looking at between each step?
Ms. Albercat, you want to take that one?
Yep, I was just about to drop it in the chat, and I'm going to go back to the slide also. Once the CP is entered and the teacher reaches out to the student to initiate the reflection process, the student has a full week to complete the assignment.
All right, and I think the other hand went down, but keep the questions coming. Any others from the parking lot? Okay, we've got a couple hands up. Kyle Thompson.
Yeah, can you speak a little bit about the parent-teacher conferences that typically happen in October? What's new about high school, and obviously what's different about the fact that it'll be e-school up until then?
That is a great question that I'm going to toss to Mr. Menduk or Mr. Franz.
Hi, it's Mr. Franz here. I'd love to answer that. So when we have report card conferences, that is at the end of the trimester. And so, I'm sorry, it's post the end of the trimester. Actually, it's typically the first or second week in December. So that timeline hasn't changed. And we'll know in a little bit how that's going to look. So in the meantime, your advisor, your student's advisor is accessible, and just reach out through those normal channels of communication. And we truly have not planned our Tri 1 report card conferences yet.
I'd also like to raise up just another, I thought, really good question in the parking lot. It was about the financial literacy course that our network is offering. I think that would have been really beneficial for me and probably a lot of the other adults in this room when we were in high school. It's being run through our home office, and the email is in the parking lot for Aka, who is leading that through the home office. So I will go ahead and drop that in the chat. But if your student is interested at all, or if you're a student that's in this call, I would highly recommend checking this class out, and that's the email there that you could use.
Thank you. Great plug. We've got a hand up from Raquel.
Hi there. So I have a question on clubs. So my daughter just recently relocated here from Arizona. So she doesn't know a lot of people, and she's trying to, you know, make friends and whatnot. So if this remote schooling goes on longer, is like remote clubs or virtual clubs like possibly a thing?
Yes, we do actually have remote virtual clubs. We are in the process of scheduling a club rush where students will get to go around, virtually and experience all the different club opportunities. And then those club meetings will take place during lunch. So there will be a lot more information coming over the next week about student clubs.
Awesome.
And
Thank
I
you.
don't know if anyone else wants to jump in and add more information. Mr. Greif, maybe I see your hand up.
Yeah, I would also say just have students check emails because some clubs are starting up kind of prior to rush to kind of hopefully get some momentum behind the clubs before we actually do a club rush. So there's a Google form for club registration. All the clubs are kind of run through Google Classroom. And then also too, there's a way for students to propose clubs. And so we really, the more students propose clubs and get teachers to be sponsors, the more dynamic our after school club program will be. And so I really encourage student leadership, student voice. You don't want a bunch of 30 to 50-year-old teachers telling you what clubs your kids want to be interested in. We want you guys, your students, to do the clubs. So please encourage them to propose clubs as well. That's really been the best way for us to have a robust club program.
Thanks, Mr. Greif. And I see a question about the D&D club. I cannot speak to whether or not that club is returning this year, but I can say that if there is not a current plan for it to return, then Liam can absolutely be the student to get that off the ground.
Yeah, if you want to propose it, Liam, and Dungeons and Dragons, it's pre-approved. It's just waiting on a sponsor.
All right, Ms. Albercat.
Thanks, Ms. Jung. I dropped this in the chat, but I think it's worth highlighting because I gathered that there might have been some miscommunication on my part around CP and assignment recovery. That process is for work that students don't complete even if they were present in class. And that's different than the policy for students who are making up work after an absence. When a student returns from an absence, they have 2 days to make up work for each day they were absent. So just wanted to clarify that those are 2 separate processes.
Thank you. Great clarification. Another hand up from Zulema.
Hi. If Zulema has signed up for softball or any other sport, does anyone have an update on that? If we are going to be receiving a answer back or what's going to happen with the sports?
Yeah, I can take this one. So kind of in short, basically, CHASA has approved, and there's a bunch more kind of information in the news right now where we won't get into all that. But basically, if we think about what DPS is doing, CHASA has approved 4 seasons, and so right now we're in season A, which is softball, cross country, boys tennis, boys golf. Of those sports offered, we only offer cross country. And so we are currently offering cross country, and we've been doing so for the last month or so. If you're interested in joining a sport that we don't offer at DSST Byers, you can please reach out to me, and I'm happy to put you in touch or help you facilitate that process. But the rule of thumb is that you either go play that sport at the school closest to where you live or closest to Byers, which would be South High School. And so each school kind of has a different process. A lot of DPS schools have family ID that they require you to register through. We use Team Snap as our registration, and so you would have to kind of use their platform. And if you go to Denver South Athletics, they have a great wealth of resource. If you go to George Washington, their homepage, they have resources on that. So send me an email if you're interested more in volleyball. I knew Zulema played last year, which will be happening now in March instead of the fall. So you can just reach out with more questions. But if you're interested in a sport that we don't offer at Byers, then it is kind of the responsibility to kind of go through that school's process for registration.
Yeah, and it looks like, or I've spoke to Sulema, and it seems like she already went that route, but we're just not getting any responses back. So
Do you want to send me an email offline and I can kind of help connect? I know a lot of those athletic directors and coaches, so I'm happy to kind of accelerate it if I can.
okay, perfect. Thank you.
All right, we have time for more questions if there are any. I'm seeing some great plugs for clubs coming in. Drama Club is up and running, recruiting new members.
While we have a brief lull, I just want to thank all the parents for being here and also just shout out a few parents who gave us extra feedback on how to make this event work for families. So just want to shout out Christine Horiuchi, Amanda Miller-Reeves, Elizabeth Swan, Shannon Tweedy, and Tina Emery. I know some of you are on this call and just want to recognize you for the effort you put in to help make this event great.
Thanks, Mr. Franz. And yeah, Mr. Menduk says we have over 100 families here, which is awesome. That's really great to see. This is also a great time if anyone wants to share any more ways that they are proud of their student. We are always happy to hear more of those. More questions. If you need more think time, I think someone said in the chat, you can always drop questions in the exit ticket. If it's a question that you do not want to ask publicly or that comes to you later after the call is over, you can definitely make multiple submissions in the exit ticket if questions keep coming up.
There was one question that potentially could get some clarity. I'm not sure who asked it, but in the parking lot, there was a question on why we use 1,000 different platforms. And that is a very fair question. In short, in the spring, when we went to a remote model, we thought it was going to be a temporary Band-Aid. Turns out we were wrong. We did obviously have this Teams platform that we've used for just about a year that we wanted to make sure stayed constant. So that way our teachers kind of didn't have to learn a whole new platform and our students didn't have to learn a whole new platform. The same could be said for Microsoft Outlook. The same could be said for Google, and we're still figuring out how to best combine all three of these major platforms that we're using. But I think, in short, a lot of this was to try to make sure that we had some sense of normalcy and routine, even in all of the unknown madness.
Thanks, Mr. Menduk. Ms. Couture, do you want to make a plug for student government elections?
Shamelessly. I think one of the best ways that you can make sure your student is engaging is by applying for to be a part of our elections. Class officer applications are open now. Students have an email in their inbox. They could show you right now. You could just look in their inbox right now for those applications. But it's a great way for them to influence the community that they're a part of. And if it's not what they want it to be, they can help make it what they want it to be. So please encourage your student to be a part of our student government. They're open now, and I think applications are due at the end of next week. Don't quote me, just check the email.
Thank you, Ms. Couture. That would be a great check for understanding for parents if you want to go look at your student's Outlook, find those applications. I will also take this opportunity to plug the Asian Student Alliance. If you're looking to join, message me or Ms. Berg. Other questions that anyone may have, we are here and ready to answer them.
One more plug I'd like to make while there's a lull is if you're like me and you were on this call paying attention to what teachers are doing to make making eSchool work right now, it's just like incredible. So if you do have a second to put a shout out for a teacher in the chat before you sign off, I think that would mean a lot for our staff that's here working a long day today, and that's really putting in an incredible effort to make this all possible.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Franz. I see another hand up. Let's see, Brody.
Hi, I'm Rebecca. I'm Brody's mom, and I've had the pleasure of joining all of his classes since school started. He is in the special needs program, so he needs that level of support. And so I am there every day from 8:30 to 3 and do my work around it. And I have to compliment each and every one of you all. You're fabulous teachers. You are doing an excellent job. The kids are engaged, they're participating, and it's just been really wonderful to participate.
Thank you so much for sharing. And also thank you so much for coming in with your camera on. Like, I don't know if you could tell, but I got so excited because seriously, it's a never ending battle with students. It's like, please turn your camera on. So when someone comes in with it on, it's just like.
I'm used to it now. I'm used to it now from being in class for the last 3 weeks. I make Brooke have it on all the time because I know you're looking at a blank wall and it must be really hard.
Yes, thank you. Yeah. It is. It's hard. I mean, and we also just love to see their faces. You know, I know for me, that has been one of the hardest things is just not being able to see kids. And especially being new to buyers, it's like, if I see a kid, it makes my whole day. All right, I see more hands. Ethan.
This is Ethan's mom. I'm having some issues with the parent portal, just some things I can't figure out. Who would I reach out to? I've gone to the advisor and I feel bad because that's not her that's not her role. Probably she's not the IT expert. Is there somebody who could help me just figure out why things are duplicated and certain grades are not showing up and things like that?
I would love to help you.
Oh, sorry, I saw Miss Couture had her hand up too. Either of you, go for it.
I'm jumping in. I'm going to reach out. I'm the parent engagement lead this year, and so if you're having a problem and I can learn from it, it'll help me help other parents. So I'll give you a call.
That'd be great, and I can share my screen. Maybe that would be helpful to kind of show you what I'm dealing with.
Sounds great.
We still have a few minutes. If anyone else has other questions, wants to share more shout outs.
I have a quick plug for makeup materials pickup. If your student did not get their materials, so for 9th grade, that would be 2 humanities books. And for 10th grade, that would be a World Lit book and potentially some AP Chem materials. Next week from 7:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday, you could come to the Cedar Street entrance to go ahead and pick that up. We'll also be sending out a message and a robocall on Monday.
All right, we will do one last call for questions. Again, if you have a question that comes up later or that you don't want to ask publicly, please put it into your exit ticket. We would also love to get your feedback so that we know how you felt about tonight, the asynchronous videos throughout the week. All of your feedback is really important and really valued, and we promise we will read and respond to all of it. So if you don't have any other questions, thank you so much for coming. It's been wonderful to see some of your faces, hear your voices, hear about your students and all of their successes. Thank you again for being here. We really, really appreciate you and love our buyers community.